Pues buenas tardes a todos los aficionados de boxeo. Yo soy Jair Martínez, parte del equipo de Izquierdazo Boxeo. Primeramente le quiero dar gracias. Yo sé que César va a ver este video, el que creó la página de los artículos de Izquierdazo Boxeo. Primeramente, César, te doy gracias. No me puedo cansar de darte gracias por la confianza y el apoyo que me has brindado. This interview, esta entrevista, before we move forward, this will be in English. It's Marcos Villegas. He's a creator of FightHubTV. Esta entrevista va a ser enfocada con Marcos Villegas, que es parte, el creador de FightHubTV. En unos pocos minutos lo va a traer aquí enfrente y para que estemos hablando, y si pues tienes cualquier pregunta, por favor, tenga la libertad de hacer sus preguntas la que usted quiera. Unos par de minutos regresamos. Vamos a poner este video así en vivo en todas las páginas de redes. Voy a invitar ahorita a Marcos Villegas. Denme un par de minutos. Bueno, aficionados de boxeo, ya en unos par de minutos vamos a tener aquí con nosotros a Marcos Villegas. Primeramente, espero que todos estén bien en cualquier lugar que estén. Como otra vez, esta entrevista va a ser en inglés. Marcos Villegas es de Los Ángeles, California. Él maneja la página de FightHubTV. Y la cosa es que vamos a hablar un poquito más de su página. We're going to be talking more about his page, talking more about the success that Marcos Villegas has had with FightHubTV. Just going to give it a few minutes before we come on. And again, I hope everybody's doing safe wherever they're at. Obviously, we're all at home. Just want to go ahead and get this started. We all know that it's hard competition here, being part of the media. And if you're always part in trying to stay on top of the media or the boxing atmosphere, you can arguably say, and you could say that Marcos Villegas FightHubTV is one of the first pages that anybody would like to go see. So I know for me, when I started to do a little bit more, started covering boxing a little bit more, I tried to, I would easily, even till right now, like if I have to get anything or if I have to get any information, first of all, I go with Marcos Villegas FightHubTV. And just here in a few minutes, we'll go ahead and get started. And hope everybody is well. Espero que todos estén bien. Una vez más, vamos a hacer unas pocas más entrevistas aquí en adelante. Vamos a tener unos entrevistas con personas del boxeo. Tenemos en mente tener así boxeadores, entrenadores si es posible. Si ustedes tienen la oportunidad de entonizar y de ver la página, sería increíble. También ver o platicar sobre pláticas, hablar de los artículos que hemos tenido recientemente. Pero esto sería bien para pasarlo y compartir, porque ahorita pues obviamente no hay mucho que podemos poner. Y aquí está Marcos Villegas con nosotros. How's it going, Marcos?
Yo, what's up, man? How's it going?
How's it going, man? I was just briefly just chatting with everybody, because obviously we're at home and we have not much to do. But first of all, before we begin, man, I want to thank you. I just want to give you a huge thank you for taking the time. I know you didn't have to do this, and I know you're very busy, and but I know as myself and as other lot of fans would like to know more, or the boxing fans would like to know more about you and just your journey. Because before we get started more just talking and chatting, I did boxing when I was little. My mom didn't let me fight, because you know how moms are. So it got me into soccer, and then later on, I picked her up when I was in college, like about almost 10 years ago. I picked it back up, and I remember around that time, your page. I think I tweeted just say, your page was just one of the first ones there. And every time I try to get like information, right then and there, like, hey, I got to go to Fight Hub TV. And just recently, about 6 years ago, I started covering boxing here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Obviously, I'm not in the as on the level that you are. Until when I saw you here about a year ago, if you remember at the Spence fight, you gave me an email, say, hey, hopefully one day, we can do an interview. And you're like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do it. Just contacted me, and I'm glad we got to do this, and it's an honor, and I'm excited for this, and to get this going. So how you been? How's everything in LA, by the way?
Well, LA is about like 40 minutes north of here. So I'm not too sure. Like, obviously, like a lot of my family's in LA. So they tell me it's, everyone's taking precaution. Everybody's like a little paranoid about everybody. Um, I live a little bit more south. I live in Orange County. So it's not as bad as like other places here in terms of like cases. I think there's only like, last time I checked, I want to say like 30, no, not even that. Like I think like 20 cases here where I live, in the city where I live.
Mhm.
But overall in the county it's like over 1,000. So it's not too bad, but everybody's taking precaution. I don't go out much. I don't go to the store much. I have to go to the store today. I'm just trying to think like the last like month and a week or month and a half that I've been inside. I've only been to the store like 3 times. And those 3 times, it's not too bad. It's just kind of annoying going to the store because you got to, like, when you go to the store, you got to make sure you have your sanitizer and your wipes. And you got to remember, like, okay, like while I'm at the store, don't touch your phone. Make sure to, sanitize the ATM machine if you got to. It's a headache, man. But, it is what it is.
It's a lot of painful procedures, as you can say, and it's just so uncommon. I also keep up with you on Instagram, and I see that you still try to go for walks, and that's what I try to do. I try to be very cautious because they do say don't go for walks, don't go to the parks, and so I also see that you're doing. It's kind of hard just being home, but going into this and just talking more about you, I wanted to give people more a little bit of a background about you. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I even went through your LinkedIn just a couple of hours ago just to see, everything, your resume. And if I'm not mistaken, Fight Hub, you're the creator of Fight Hub TV, the second boxing biggest portal on YouTube. You're already almost, and I checked it right now, you're almost to 800,000 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken. You're averaging 2 to 3 million viewers. Your work has been noted with USA Today, Yahoo Sports, Sports Illustrated, and we can go on and on. And I think one of the biggest ones that you also have is that you're the PBC unofficial ringside scorer. Now, how did all this start? How did Fight Hub TV? I know it because I heard you on a pod a couple of months ago, and I think I forgot what podcast it was on. And I know you gave all this brief, and I was like, I want a little bit more about Marcos. But how did Fight Hub TV, and how did you end up being part of PBC? Because man, like that's something that you can carry on. You can tell your grandkids, you can tell your family, hey, I'm the unofficial ringside score for PBC. Something that was it Harold Letterman, rest in peace, that used to do that. And everybody's like, oh my God, Letterman has it like this. How did the judges get it like this?
Yeah, man. It's crazy now that you think about it. I went from YouTube to Fox. You know, in terms of like PBC, it came. I want to say, shoot, like 4 or 5 years ago. Steve Farhood, who's Showtime's unofficial scorer, had reached out to me to do some work for this new thing that was forming, which at the time was PBC.
Mhm.
And he asked me, hey, Al Bernstein, who is one of my mentors, and so Steve, he told me, he said, hey, Al told me to reach out to you because you're looking for work. And I wanted to see if you've been willing to help us out with this thing we got going. We need someone that does, who's like a historian for boxing, but for like current boxing, who knows a lot about the guys that are fighting now, and someone to score the fights also. And I remember telling Steve, I'm like, Steve, like, I'm not a boxing historian, dude, and I'm not a judge. I've never scored fights for TV before. Like, I've scored them ringside. And he's like, everything about boxing going on now, so you're perfect for the role, because they just want to know about the stuff that's happening now, and you give them context about what these guys have done in the last few years. You've been covering this forever. You're going to do fine on that. Yeah, you might have to do some research, but you're fine. And he's like, and you've watched hundreds and hundreds of fights. It's like, I've seen your Twitter. Like, you have it on point with me, so I know you know how to score fights. I was like, okay, all right, I'll give it a try. And that's how it happened, because before this Fox deal, there was a different Fox deal with a different set of producers doing the work and stuff like that. And I was the unofficial scorer, but they would never put me on, which got me really frustrated and angry, because I just felt I was super underutilized, and I never was told the reason as to why they were so against me going on, which is completely different now, because they feature me now on the Fox telecast.
Yeah.
So that went away. And then when this new PBC on Fox deal happened, they reached out to me again, and were just poking around like, hey, what were you doing before? What was the role? If we offered you a role similar, would you take it? I told them, no, I don't want to do research anymore. I want to be on camera. I want to be considered for a talent position. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get back to you. Never heard from them. They have the press conference. All the talent is announced. And I'm like, great. Like, all these years of work I did for you guys, and I don't even get considered for anything. Like, like, what the heck, like, whatever. I was really bummed out. And then I want to say, after that press conference that they announced the team, I want to say about like 3 or 4 weeks later, and it couldn't even been, maybe it could have been 2 weeks later, I got a call again, and they told me, hey, Marcos, we've been thinking a lot about what you had told, because I told the head producer, I told him, I want to be on talent. Please just give me an opportunity. Give me a chance to let my foot in the door. Like, I'm going to be the least person you have to worry about, please just give me an opportunity. Give me a chance. So he called me and he said, hey, you remember how you asked me to give you a chance? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to give you that chance. Where I'm going to have you score all the FS1s. Can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And yeah, man, that's how that happened. And it was just crazy because, obviously prior I was doing Fight Hub, and it's just, I started thinking like, man, it took me 10 years, dude, like 10 years, hard work, 10 years of, I lost a lot of friends because I was so focused on making the YouTube channel work. I went through relationships that didn't work out because I worked so much and I was gone so much. And, it all hit me at once, because when I started Fight Hub, the goal was to use Fight Hub as a platform to build me onto a network, because that's what I wanted. And it's just like, you accomplish that to a certain extent, obviously, I want to, I still feel like I'm a small fish in a very, big pond.
Yeah.
But that's how the Fox thing started. And like, the YouTube thing was an accident, bro, to be honest. And I'm going to give you a very condensed version, because I know I've been talking a lot already.
Well, it's okay. It's all right. There's really nothing that's going to slip down the cracks, because
Okay.
yeah, for me it's not, and I feel more for the audience, because when I heard it in the other podcast, like, there was just so much information. And Marcos, you carry so much knowledge and so much experience, and so you have so many stories, I'm gonna jump into one. I'm gonna ask you later with Triple G when I did
Okay.
it. But yeah, go ahead and just talk about it. So how did
No,
that?
yeah. So it was an accident, honestly, because I was doing marketing work. I went to college for advertising. I have a bachelor's in advertising, and that didn't work out. I hated it when I worked at an agency, and I wanted to get into sports because I was a really big combat sports fan. I like boxing. I like wrestling. I like MMA, and I wanted to work in sports, and I had no idea how that could happen. Like I hit up like a ton of sports agencies, none of them got back to me. Um, when I had my advertising job, like I quit during like the recession, right when it started, and I was just like, dude, no one's gonna get back to me. No one's hiring right now. Like, everybody, all these banks are going bankrupt. People are losing their homes. Like, there's gonna be no hiring right now. And then I found through my roommate, I found a little MMA company that was putting together an expo that led me to doing some work with an upstart promotion that was putting on a fight. And that's how it started, because a lot of the stuff that I was doing for them online, they didn't want to post, or they didn't think it was good for them. So I just started posting them on YouTube without calling it Fight Hub yet. It was still my personal channel. Um, I didn't end up, the first video I did got a lot of traffic, got like 30,000 views. Um, and I just started putting random clips while I was still doing work for the MMA company. And I think like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, that's when I named it Fight Hub. And then a week after that, I did a video with Bob Sapp that got like 1 million views. And that's when I knew like, hey, I'm on to something here. This isn't normal. Keep doing what you're doing. And I kept doing it, man. I struggled a lot. I didn't make money off of it till like 5 years in, so like in 2.5 of those years, luckily I was on unemployment. And it allowed me to build up the channel without worrying too much. But I was still struggling, still doing odd jobs, still like just barely making it by. And then I met Al Bernstein. The same month, I told myself that I was going to quit because I couldn't do this for free anymore. Um, and it's crazy. I told myself, if I can't find a gig this month, I'm quitting the hosting. I'm quitting the youth. I'm quitting. And then 3 weeks later, I met Al, and Al implored me to keep going, gave me a lot of advice. And I don't know. I just had like this voice in the back of my mind that just knew that it would end up working out to keep going. And I did. And then a few months later, Al offered me a job at the boxing channel. And while I was at the boxing channel, allowed Fight Hub to grow. And I think like within the first year of the boxing channel, Fight Hub started making enough that it was like part-time income, but enough to get me by. And that's how it started.
And you know what? Like, I guess people don't really notice the work that you put in. The people just think like, oh wow, he just finally made it. But if we go back, we were Ryan probably like 10 years ago, YouTube wasn't that popping like how it is now, or it's
No,
very.
man, 10 years ago, YouTube was barely like YouTube, I think came out like in 04, 05. So like I started on YouTube in 09. So that was still the very, very early days of YouTube, man. Like you could find anything on YouTube, movies, fights. Like YouTube used to be legit. Like I liked YouTube over Netflix because I could find everything on YouTube. And
Yep.
then YouTube started changing. But yeah, very early days of YouTube.
Yeah, and like you said, even going back like in 2009, when I guess when you said you started your page, I remember I was graduated from high school, and I remember YouTube when we first got our computers, even in high school, like, we're like, oh, you're on YouTube. We're like, what is YouTube? Like nobody even paid attention to YouTube. So now to see where you were at from where you started to now where you're at, I mean, it's a big accomplishment, Marcos. That's what I'm saying. Like when I saw you here at the Spence Garcia, I told my guys that, hey, man, I want to go talk to Marcos. Like that's one of the guys that I enjoyed watching his channels. I remember when I used to watch him like about 8-10 years ago, and I was just the first thing I wanted to see, because I remember you would be in all the camps. You were starting there in the camps and interviewing. And I wanted to also ask you, and I know, and with social media nowadays, with everybody having a platform, Could you say that competition has gotten very, I guess, tough? Does that sometimes, how can I say? Does that sometimes worry you that there's so much competition now? There's just so many. You're not the only YouTube channel now, and there's just so many now. Does that worry you at times?
No, not really, to be honest. Because I've always been of the thought like there's enough for everybody. Everybody can carve out their own niche, their own audience. And it's just like, look at television. Look how many TV shows and programs there are. There's so many. And it's the same thing. People got to look at their YouTube channels as unique content for a very specific audience. Look how many cooking shows there is.
Yeah.
Look how many like dramas there is. So I'm like, no, yeah, there's a lot more competition. And does it make the job a little bit harder? In a way, because when we're all at an event, like it does take away from one's traffic. But like at the end of the day, like I look at it as like there's more than enough for everybody. People like me and our channel because of the interviews or because of the stuff that we get, they're gonna watch
The background too. The
yeah,
background.
yeah. And I don't know, it doesn't bother me one bit. There's other people that don't think that way, that want everything for themselves.
Oh,
I don't like that. Because I was told very early on by Bernardo Osuna that
mhm.
that there's more than enough for everybody. The sun touches everybody. And for a while I was like, what's this guy mean? But then when I started like really getting successful on YouTube, I started to understand, like I'm not gonna hate on somebody who's doing well because I'm doing well. More power to them as well if they're doing well. So I think there's more than enough for everybody.
I also heard you say, well, I saw on your Twitter that you said, man, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And somebody says another one, and you're like,
Yeah.
hey man, turn on your TV. How many channels do you have? Like, you have so many channels. I was like, it's just what I want to do. To me, I would tune in if because there's so many podcasts. I would tune into your podcast. I'm just gonna
Oh,
tell
thank you.
you. But there, being around all the interviews and talking to fighters and even talking about, there's a piece of pie for everybody. Fans like me or fans that are into boxing, I like to watch all the buildup, like the first press conference, the media workout. Sometimes I've seen that you've gotten exclusive access. Like for an example, when it was Spence versus Thurman, you were in the studios of Fox and you were there interviewing. Not everybody was just there, so just the background work from that, the before the fight, the weigh-ins, after the weigh-ins, the press conference afterwards. Like, I'm that type of person that likes to be covering from all the way when the first got announced all the way through, and even afterwards what people got to say. So that's why I can say that you have the following, you have the subscribers, you have the people that be like, hey, I'm gonna tune into Marcos Villegas as Fight Hub, because you have all of that. And I guess that's why success speaks for yourself for your channel. But going into interviews, I wanted to ask you, this is going to be kind of like the awkward part, but name me one of the toughest interviews that you've ever had. Like, who's been the toughest, and why was that? Let's not say Bob Arum, because I'll ask you about Arum later.
No, I love talking to Bob. The toughest interviews are the ones where they give you just one word answers. They don't give you open-ended answers, or they don't go into detail as to what they're doing or what they're thinking about. I think those are the hardest interviews, when you ask somebody like, hey, I heard you incorporated this. How has this helped you? And they say like, oh, just with speed, and then that's it. Or like, how was camp? And they go, it was good. And then they just end it. And it's just like, it throws you off, and you really, really got to pull teeth to get to get the type of information that you want to get. Because, with every interview that you do, especially with me, I want to make mine different from somebody else's interview, that because there's a lot of people that do interviews now too. I want to make it different, and how do I make it different? Where I have the athlete reveal something that they haven't told the other people, a new piece of information. That's always my goal. So I would say like those are the hardest to do when you're interviewing is the fighters that give you like one word responses. Like those are super tough.
How do you prepare for how do you prepare? Let's just say the fight has been announced. They already, get the email from whatever media outlet, and they tell you, hey, tomorrow in LA there will be the press conference and everything. How do you prepare? You obviously, I've heard you say that you take down questions. Do you also, watch videos from previous? How is it that you prepare, so you make sure that you have great questions like what you just said?
Yeah, like honestly, like the last year I haven't really prepared questions. I just kind of been going on the fly.
Uh-huh.
When you cover this for so long, it gives you like a different insight as to what you want to ask or what you want to get out of it. Obviously, I still do this. I think like, what do the fans want to know? I think that's the most important thing, and then I ask, like, what do you personally want to know as a fan of boxing? Because at the end of the day, we're all fans of the sport. So that's how I always go with it, as like, what are the fans talking about and wanting to know? And when I have time, I do prepare questions, but a lot of the times I just wing it, because I think sometimes that leads to like a more natural, organic conversation, even though, you could miss some of the questions you wanted, or some of the topics you wanted to go over with the athlete. But then too, sometimes it leads to like a better, more natural interview.
So my editor, Cesar, the creator of Izquierdazo Boxeo, that is based off of Mexico City, who I want to also just give a thanks to him for giving me the trust and having the confidence and letting me help him start with this page. He wanted to, I remember when the video came recently about you asking Bob Arum about Mikey Garcia, and he just got up and left. And then you said, and you also talked to somebody, if you don't get like a bad response or a bad vibe from Bob Arum, is because you didn't get on Bob Arum's good side. How was that relationship? Because you always get to talk to him. And when it was Maurice Hooker versus Jose Ramirez here at the UTA in Arlington, he's not going to be quiet. Like, he just has so much to say. And I'm not saying in a rude way, but he has so much experience. So can you tell me, how was that time when he just got up and left? Because you were like, oh, wait, like, don't leave. How was that time?
When you do this for so long, like, stuff like that doesn't faze me really anymore, to be honest, because like that's happened to me like a lot. I've had people kick me out of their gyms, like cut me mid-interview. I'm doing an interview and someone steps in and finishes the interview, so it's like people yell at me, so it doesn't faze me too much anymore. And then with Bob's yelled at me so many times that, like, I don't take it as offense. And I've said this before. I've heard from other people say, like, it's kind of like a badge of honor when he yells at you, because you're doing your job right. If he yells at you or he gets mad, that means you asked him a tough or sensitive subject, So, but yeah, like, I've always been a really like cool, calm, collective type person, anyways. So, even like before all this stuff. So yeah, it doesn't really faze me as much when when Bob got up from that interview. I'll give you some backstory. We had already been talking for like 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So I think it wasn't well, and the question did kind of annoy him. I know it did.
You could
just
tell.
seems that Mikey kind of just annoys him. The subject of Mikey annoys him. It could be because he lost the whatever law thing that was happening. But we had already been talking for like 10, 11 minutes. And I think, yeah, he was kind of annoyed and he didn't want to talk anymore because he was getting a little bit riled up. And I think he was just kind of tired of talking. So he just got up and left. Like, it's funny. Like, there's very few people that do that they'll cut off the interview because they're just done talking. And like, the only other guys from the top of my head that I do know that will just randomly just walk off on your interview and they'll tell you when it's done is Chavez Sr. and Eric Morales. Those are the two that I've been mid-interview and I ask them a question and they're like, da 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 da, and then they'll just walk off. And I'm like, I'm not finished, bro. And they're like, no, I'm done. So yeah.
Also, that's kind of crazy because Ray Flores, I know who Ray Flores is.
Yeah.
The ring, the the ring announcer. So obviously, there's levels to it. So what I do, my work is nothing kind of compared to the level you do, because you're a higher platform, which is obviously respected. So I have an interview. I'll send it to you later. I don't think you've seen it. I have an interview when it was Munguia versus O'Sullivan here in San Antonio. So I always go, and always tell me, why you always go dress? I always like to, present myself, be presentable, because then you can have Eddie Hearn, you can have Chavez, you can have Oscar De La Hoya, all these big names. And then if you, just sometimes not dress up accordingly, they're like, kind of, might rub them off, but just take you not seriously. So Chavez Sr. went to the back, Munguia versus O'Sullivan in San Antonio. And I said, man, you know what? It's always been my dream to talk to Chavez, and I never thought I was going to be able to do this. And I'm not going to get more into about my personal stuff, but I never thought I was going to interview Chavez Sr. So when I went to go talk to him, I saw him and I approached him and I talked to him, in Spanish, Chavez, por favor, me puede dar la oportunidad. Va a ser como 5 minutos. And it was the opposite for me. But Eric Morales, I could say that Eric Morales was like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I asked him previously, hey, you think we can interview? My editor asked me if I could do this. And he's like, probably later. And then after the fight, you know what? He's not like in that state of mind where he wants to be bothered right now. And I've heard.
You know what though, Eric is such a nice guy, and really? He works on Fox Deportes. I see him at the fights a lot. He's always been really, really good with me, and he hasn't cut me off lately. But when I wasn't as well known, he did. I think like on 2 occasions. But no, I like Eric. You know what it is? What I've noticed is that a lot of the time they're just tired and they just want to get the heck out of there. They obviously, it comes with the territory. They're going to get
bombarded.
Yeah, by fans and all that. Like, I get that. I understand how that can make someone tired. But also working the fights, it's a long day. At times you're tired, and a lot of the times they just want to get out of there so they can go home, because you want to be home. Traveling takes a lot out of you and it's stressful.
Yeah, and so when I saw him go to the back, and I said, look, I'm just gonna give it a shot. And like you've said, like many probably have shut you down, many have kicked you out of the gym. Like for me, I still get kind of nervous and get it shut down. Like it kind of I feel like embarrassed. Like, man, they just shut me down. But the hardest thing that a fighter or a trainer, anybody in boxing atmosphere can tell you is just knowing. You just got to accept it, and that's something that I have to learn. But Chavez Sr., I caught him in the corner. I asked him, and he gave me like a full 4 minutes of an interview, and I was the only person that I got it. And it was just a couple of months ago, like it was in January, and I uploaded, and that got me like 12,000 views. That's the biggest that I've seen personally. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I never expected it to go like this. And I was extremely nervous inside of myself. I was like, what am I going to ask next? What am I like? All the questions that I kind of had lined up, like they just went out. So I just had to improvise, but it was just nerve wracking. So going into talking about that, has there ever been a time that you've talked to any fighter, any trainer, any promoter that you've been like, oh my God, like I'm actually talking to this person, like, oh my God, like I'm nervous? Has there ever been a time? I'm sure you have numerous.
Now, no, because I've been doing it for so long. The longer you do it, it goes away. When I was still like learning, I would get nervous. I remember I interviewed Dana White. I was really, really nervous, and when I would get nervous, I get too much in my head and I'd forget my questions and I'd be like, 50 Cent. I remember when I interviewed him, I was extremely nervous. But luckily, like I had prepped and I remembered, what I wanted to ask him. But no, definitely. There's been times where you do get, butterflies and you start thinking about what you're going to say over the head, and then you start overthinking it. And then because you overthink it, you freeze and then you forget your questions and stuff like that. But I think, to combat that, you just got to get the reps in so you don't feel as nervous when you do the interviews.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that as time progresses, and you're just gonna be, I'm just gonna have to do this more, and then I just got to get more natural at this. I remember the first time when I did my first interview ever, and I didn't even know what to do. It was with Canelo here, Canelo versus oh my God, Liam Smith here at the AT&T Stadium.
Yeah.
The guys that I joined. Real Talk Boxing here from the Dallas area. They told me, hey man, we're gonna, you want to help us out and this and that. And I went to go talk to Canelo, and he's the only one that talked to me, because there was like a section for like the big networks, and then there was a section for just the media, the social media, like the Twitter pages, the websites. And he was the only one that spoke with me, and I was like, oh my god. And then like a couple hours later, Jerry Jones, I got to talk to him. I was like, I never expected I was going to talk to Jerry Jones. But as your experiences being around, you've been to almost a lot of notorious, famous gyms and throughout your career, and I'm sure it's gonna continue that way. Talk to me a little bit more about the time when Triple G, he shook your hand, we're trying to do like I'm losing the word, but how was that experience with Triple G? How strong did you feel him when he was gripping your hand?
Yeah, no, a lot of people said like, "Oh, you're faking it," like that wasn't real, blah blah blah. No, I wasn't faking it. That shit fucking hurt. No, for real, it did. We were there for a media day, and I don't know, like I had seen him do this exercise before for like his forearms, and I just sat there and I'm like, wonder how hard like this dude's grip is, because like when I wrestled, I had a pretty good grip, So I was thinking, I'm like, I wrestled. I'm like, I probably have a good baseline. I'm like, let's see how strong this guy really is, So that's when I went over there. I told my camera guy, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna ask him to shake my hand really, really hard because I want to see how hard, of a grip he has. Now my grip's not that great, It's compared to when I was an active wrestler. So I went over there and I asked him, and I told him, that's funny because he's like, "Is that all you got?" Or he said something like that. It's like, "Is that it?" And the whole thing's on camera, but like, yeah, he weighs about probably off season 170, and
Yeah.
the grip felt like it was coming from like a 200-pound plus person. Like it was really, really, really hard, dude. Like that shit fucking hurt. Like, yeah, man. He has an iron grip, dude. And like I understand why
Yeah.
he punches so hard now,
Yeah.
because like boy got a lot of muscle there in his forearms and his wrists and stuff like that, So yeah, man, this is painful. I didn't think he would grip it as hard because there's been times where like I've arm wrestled like boxers, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, how did I just beat you? And like it's happened like on 2 occasions where I've arm wrestled boxers and I've beaten them, and I'm like, nah, like I don't even work out anymore, bro. Like, what the heck? So when I did that with him, I was thinking like he can't grip that hard. There's no way. Like he weighs around this. I'm like, it'll be hard, but it won't be that hard. It was hard. The only ones that have been like harder have been like heavyweights,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, it was painful.
So to I'm gonna ask you just a few more questions so we can wrap it up. I know you wanna take the time for the rest of your Sunday, enjoy it, catch up on a lot of shows. Name me one fight that you would in the past that you would have wished that you could have been part of that fight and relived it. Be like, man, I wish I would have been ringside and Fight Hub would have been around that time. Name me one fight that you wish you would have had that opportunity.
Man, there's I want to say there's three. I know you're asking me for one, but
That's
the
okay.
three that I always look at and wish that I could have seen or could have been a part of was Joe Louis and Max Schleming, the second one. Because to me, I think that's the most significant fight in all of boxing because there was just so much happening in the background, given World War II and what was happening there. The second one would be Ali and Frazier, the first fight back in the 70s at MSG. Oh my God, I would have loved to have been there live. Just hearing the stories about how even like big name celebrities couldn't even get into the fight, and how like Sinatra had to like the only way he got in was to be a photographer. That's the only way he got a ticket. And Corrales Castillo, I would have wished I would have been at that fight, to be honest, because that was a tremendous fight, and they just played it last week. So I would say like those three would have been the ones, and and Mickey Ward and Gotti, a close one as well. You know,
all three of them, right? The Mickey got the Mickey Ward and
the first one though. The first one, all three were great, but the first one was the pinnacle. Well, that was the one. You know,
that's one that placed
stayed in people's mind. Yeah.
Yes. I was actually gonna wear my Arturo Gotti and Mickey Ward shirt right now, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, I got it from Roots of Fighting.
Yeah.
So so now let's look into the future. Obviously, hopefully this pandemic, calms down hopefully soon, but let's try to be optimistic. But the reality is, it's gonna be kind of tough. What fights are you looking forward? Because I think the wave is starting to take off of these new generation fighters: Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz from the Dallas area. I don't know who else I'm forgetting. So you have those four fighters. You obviously have Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. You have Mikey Garcia, who still wants Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao still being in his 40s is still relevant, and people calling him out, which is crazy. The Lomachenko fight, Lomachenko wanting Teofimo Lopez, the heavyweight division that we also have, that finally we're excited to have the heavyweight. Joshua, you have Fury that just won. Wilder, hopefully he comes back. Andy Ruiz, what could happen to him? What are some of the fights that you're looking forward here in this year, if it could happen, and also next year?
Even though everybody's writing off Wilder, I want to see the fight with him and Fury, because I want to know, just for me, what Wilder can do, because I think a lot of people are writing him off, and I think he could very easily come into that third fight and knock out Tyson Fury, but I want to see like how he can get back from that, and how much it really affected him. Like that to me is the story of that fight, to see how he bounces back, and how he can become better from it. I think, with this going on, I just hope that they make these fights now that we've been asking for the last 2 years, 3 years. They make it right away, because it gets them to a point like, what, we need to start off like with a bang. We need to see Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, Pacquiao and Spence, Pacquiao and Mikey, Spence and Crawford. Those are all fights that I want to see. I want to see Inoue back in action. That fight that he had coming up with, I believe, was it Casemiro? I think that it was scheduled, supposed to happen this month, I think, in April 22nd, coming up. I wanted to see Inoue back here in the U.S. So yeah, there's a lot of fights that once we get back, I hope they don't marinate even more. And because of what happened, because of not having any boxing, it makes the promoters make these fights, these big fights, right away, because they're going to want to make money, and they're going to have to start off with a bang. So yeah, those are just a very small few amount of fights, but there's so many fights, so many big ones that I look forward to. But obviously everybody wants to see the heavyweights, and it's a good thing when we're talking about the heavyweights, and really those heavyweight matchups were something I was looking forward to.
This is a question that I just thought about right now, and I think I want to see your input about it. So we can start wrapping this up. So you said, the promoters and everybody else, we should start out with the bang when this calms down, this pandemic calms down. Do you think it's gonna be tough for the audience, for the fans to tune in, to pay their top dollar while almost 2 months they've been without a job? You think fans are gonna want to go to fights? You think fans are gonna want to fly to Vegas? You think that could be also that could jeopardize the fights in the future? You think that could also happen?
Man, that's such an excellent point, and I didn't even think about that. But you know what? You have a point. And they're gonna have to look at the economic climate and see what's going on. And you know what? They're gonna have to make, because here's the thing: once this thing's over, people are gonna want to go out. People are gonna want to celebrate. They're gonna want to go have fun. But there's also gonna be a lot of people budgeting and everything like that. So they're going to have to price everything right and according to that, you know, because you are right. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be really, really tight on money that, and even then, you know, that still might be a little bit paranoid about traveling anywhere and going anywhere, you know. So I could see it would be very, very unwise of the promoters in boxing for them to not look at that and lower the prices of everything, knowing what's happening. You know, I during the recession back in '07 to '09, you know, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if they discounted the pay-per-views. I don't think they did. But I do remember during that time, a lot of us would pitch in together and go to somebody's house. And that's how we kind of were able to not get around, but able to watch the pay-per-views, because if, hey, you know, if there's 10 of us, we all pitch in, you know, $5,
It's
we pay for
cheaper.
the pay-per-view. So, you know, they might look at it like that too. Like, hey, you know, like we'll keep the prices regardless. People are going to pitch in together and go to each other's houses. It's funny. I'm starting to remember an interview that I did with like Richard Schaefer where he said that back when he was with Golden Boy. But I think, you know, for sure the tickets, the live event tickets are going to have to be lowered. I think, because yeah, coming out of this, a lot of people are going to be on really tight budgets.
And it's going to be a huge obstacle, Marcos, because I believe, like you just said, around '07 to '09 when the recession happened, around those tough times that happened, yeah, pay-per-view was around. But now, if we fast forward, sometimes some people don't pay for pay-per-view. What did they say for Fury versus Wilder? The second one, it was over 1 million streams illegally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also something they're gonna have to think about, because if they charge like 79, 69, $89 for a pay-per-view, people are gonna be like, I'm not gonna do that. I can find it easily on the website. That's also what people got to think. The promoters, the boxing companies, all of them got to think about, you know. So it's gonna be a huge obstacle. Marcos, last question. One fight that has left you shocked, that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. One fight, or you can have a lot. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I have a lot, but Pacquiao Marcus 4.
Oh
That
yeah,
was, yeah, Pacquiao Marcus 4.
that
Man,
was a lot. Yeah.
I still remember that fight very, very vividly. Like when you hear that saying, and I know it's a cliche saying, but when you hear like there's something in the air, like I remember with that fight there was a little bit more electricity, like it was packed, and I remember like, dang, these guys are louder than normal, you know, and I'm like, and I just had this feeling like, man, like this is gonna be a good fight. Something really, really dramatic is gonna happen, because the people there were, you know, it was all a Marcus crowd. There was people there for Manny, but it was mostly all Marcus supporters. And then when he came out, I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like this fight's gonna be crazy. And then, you know, he knocks down Manny, and that's the first time he knocks down Manny, and then Manny knocks him down, you know, the next round, and then the knockout happens. You know, I just remember seeing Manny's feet just flop on the ground, and the referee over him, and like the people from Top Rank, they had this like look on their face like Manny had just died, you know, and a lot of people were worried that something really bad had happened to Manny, because he was unresponsive for like a good 45 seconds, you know.
It was almost a
But
minute. I remember. It was a while. It was
yeah,
almost a
it
minute.
was a while, you know, like Top Rank people like were all white. Everybody was up. Like I remember in press row, like people were shocked. They couldn't believe it. I remember vividly seeing like Jinky like freak out, and like Bob running up to her and like hugging her, and she's trying to get into the ring, and they're trying not to. They're like keeping her back. I remember seeing Boo Boy, like he was one of the first ones to run in there and stuff, and it was just a crazy, crazy night, man. It was a crazy night, you know, because obviously if you were a fan of Marquez, you know, you felt like finally like redemption, like, you know, because Marquez fans felt that he won all those fights with Manny. They felt that he won the second and the third, you know, and they felt that he had been robbed, and finally like a wrong had been righted. but when you start covering Manny and you start hearing the stories of how many people he helps, and then you see it with your own eyes, and you feel bad. You don't ever want to see anything bad happen to him or any fighter that steps in the ring and stuff like that. So it was. I'll never forget that, man. That was a crazy night, and it's just a lot of stuff happened. And I'm trying to remember like how it was post fight. If Manny even came.
I don't think he did. I remember they rushed
I
him.
don't think he did either. Yeah, I don't think he did it. I think they took him as a precaution, but I remember, and I'm trying to remember. I'd have to look at the video, but I know Juan did come and everything like that, because like I think the third fight he wore some weird shirt that said like I beat Manny like 2 times. There was some weird yellow shirt that he had, So to go from that to this, and like that was the biggest win of his career, his most proudest moment. Like in a way, if you were like I mentioned, like for him it was he finally, he got his guy. It's like, Goku and Vegeta. Like Vegeta finally beats Goku, and he's like, finally, after all this struggle, finally, I get my glory.
Yeah,
like he finally had his moment. Yeah, that was a crazy night.
Yeah, I remember watching it at home with all my family, and I remember my uncle in Spanish, se murió, and I was like, no, don't say that. I remember, and it was kind of heartbreaking because of me, I'm a proud Mexican American, proud of my heritage, and it was kind of hard to root against Pacquiao because I've always been you cannot hate Pacquiao, you can't find anybody that can hate Pacquiao, and it broke my heart seeing him like that, and then what he has done, what continues to do. I remember about 2 years ago. A year ago, if I'm not mistaken, PBC, does behind the scenes and everything. Like when he goes to go run for his, his morning run, he takes like about like $1,000, or I mean, in the money in Philippines, and there's a line of people just waiting, and each person gives them like $10 or $20.
I've seen Manny on those. He does that in LA too. Like I've seen him give money to people, after his runs in LA. Like someone will go up to him and ask him for money, and he'll be in his car and the window rolls down and he gives people money. I've seen him do that. So yeah, all that stuff that he does is it's not fake. Like that's really him,
Yeah. And well, Marcos, I appreciate your time. I truly do appreciate your time. I told my editor Cesar, I told him, I said, I'm really nervous because it's somebody that I admire, looking at your stuff. I at times, believe it or not, I watch your interviews. I try to learn write down some of the questions that you do. I learned a lot from you, believe it or not. So I truly do thank you for this opportunity, for just talking to me, talking for the website. I know I was gonna do it in Spanish. I said, no, we both might be kind of, I'm a little bit nervous while this is going on. I don't want to mess it up. With about a month ago for the fight here that you were at, Ring TV asked me to do a translation, and I was like, last minute, I got so nervous that I got so much hate on YouTube. The comments, oh my God.
Don't listen to the YouTube comments, man. The YouTube comments are, people just write stuff on there just to get a response. They want a response. So just, I don't even respond really to the YouTube comments, or at least the negative ones. I don't. I just ignore them, and you just ignore all that. You can't let that stop you from doing your thing and improving. Use it as constructive criticism, because there are times, and I remember, even when I was coming up, there are times where they are saying something that is the truth, even though even though you hate it, what they're saying, like they do bring up things that you're doing that you're messing up on, but take that as constructive criticism and be like, what, I am kind of doing this, or I am saying a lot, or a lot, that okay, I got to make a cognitive decision when I go into an interview or when I'm doing interviews to not say these words, to take these words out, and everything like that, So you just got to look at it as a chance to be constructive with it, but you got to have thick skin too.
Oh yeah. No. And then that also taught me, be always on your feet. And that's always is in the boxing. Like you might just catch a fighter coming at the last minute, you got to be on your feet because you got to catch him in a good time. But again, Marcos, I appreciate it. I'll let you enjoy it for the rest of your Sunday night. We'll stay in touch. Thank you for this time, and we'll stay in touch, bro. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too, man.
Bueno, eso fue finalmente la entrevista. This was the interview with Marcos Villegas. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. We're here in a couple of more days. In another week, we'll go ahead. Somebody else lined up. En unas 3 semanas vamos a tener a alguien más que va a estar parte del show aquí por YouTube Live. Disculpen primeramente si fue todo en inglés. Vamos a intentar aquí en el futuro de hacerlo unas entrevistas en español con diferentes boxeadores o promotores. Igualmente con personajes o gente que maneja sus páginas de YouTube. Gracias a todos, espero que estén bien y una vez más, última vez, muchas gracias César por tu confianza y por brindarme este apoyo y que todos tengan buenas noches y que se cuiden por favor en estos tiempos